You're watching the Newshour Special Edition, Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Assam and Mizoram refuse to budge. In a major escalation, Mizoram has filed a case against 6 officials on the Assam side, and it includes charges such as attempt to murder and assault. An unfazed Himanta Biswa Sarma says that he's prepared to join the probe, but of course, Assam Minister Ashok Singhal has launched a scathing attack on Mizoram, saying that Mizoram's conduct is against statesmanship and discussions on current tension will only take place after it admits its mistake. Let's now take this right across to our guest joining us. Rupam Goswami is Chief Spokesperson of the Assam BJP. Rajat Sethi, political analyst, is joining us live. With us also is Suman Raman. But I want to first and foremost go across to see Lal Remrutwa, who is the senior member of the MZP, joining us. Mr. Lal Remrutwa, the question coming in from the Assam side is they are saying this case against a sitting chief minister with charges, including charges that of murder, is something that is only going to increase the brinkmanship. This was avoidable at this stage when the need of the hour is to calm tempers on both sides.
Well, thank you. Yes, actually, first thing that we have to know is this escalation and encroachment of Mizoram has been coming after the chief minister's directly, or the order has been coming from the chief minister office. It has been clearly highlighted by the local MLAs in the interview on the day when the incident was happening. So he is the one who is responsible for, and he should be booked, and he should be being under the ambit of law.
But sir, why, my question to you is this: if you're going to start filing cases against chief ministers, where is the end to this problem? Both sides have to take a deep breath, have to calm down. Even the Assam Police, for that matter. And I'm going to put that question across to the BJP spokesperson. But from the point of view of the Mizoram government, isn't this just going to escalate and complicate the problem further? Mr. Lal Remrutwa.
Yes, the thing is, well, since, these issues have been going on for more than 150 years. If we have to go back to the if we don't go back to the history, then I think we will not have a solution. First thing that comes to is from the Mizoram side, Mizoram peoples and Mizoram government stand is very clear that 1875 is the only boundary which is acceptable to us. So this is the first thing that comes to us. And the other thing is the central government is not committed enough to solve the boundary issue which is going on, and the tension is going on time to time. They are just try to kind of give some time to maintain the status quo, and people have to be not fighting.
Okay.
But the thing is they don't have committed enough.
And that's the whole point. That's the whole point. You have to maintain the status quo, and certainly the central government's role also is going to come under the scanner. But I want to bring in Rupam Goswami. Rupam Goswami ji, the question that will be asked is that at the end of the day, the Mizoram government may be filing the case. The BJP government there has opposed it in Assam. But there is a very, very important question, sir. Even the Assam government is pursuing cases against the Rajya Sabha member of parliament, for instance, against those on the Mizo side, for instance. Both sides are claiming that the territory is in their jurisdiction. But at the end of the day, both sides are actually engaging in very, very dangerous brinkmanship, something that's dangerous for this country and its unity.
Definitely, for the unity of the country, this is not a good sign to fighting among us, number one. And my friend from Mizoram rightly said that they cannot go back to the history. But he is again speaking about the boundary of 1875. Look, the main difference in this case is that we are having a constitutional boundary, because Mizoram.
No, see, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that without going back we cannot have.
Please let
without
me
going back to the history, we cannot have the solution.
please listen to me. Please listen to me.
Okay, gentlemen, one at a time. I'll come back to you, Mr. Lalram Ruata. You've spoken. Let the other side also have its say, and then I'll come back to you for a rebuttal if required. Yes, go ahead, Mr.
No, but it seems he's misquoting this. That's right.
Mizoram state was not formed in 1875. It was formed in 1986. So in 1986, they have a boundary. So they cannot go back to history. The main issue is that, and we have to resolve. I have due respect to all the Mizo people, of Mizoram sentiments, everything. And that's why we have not retaliated.
No,
because, but this doesn't mean that
Mr. Goswami, leave history. You know, problem is that we are unfortunately, this is a problem that has been there from colonial times. We all recognize that it's from pre-independence era. But problem is that when the problem has been brewing for a year, when there's been violence that has been going on, it takes mature statesman-like decisions of both the state governments and their respective state leaderships to ensure that they're not playing to the gallery. Unfortunately, that is not happening, Mr. Goswami. And both sides are engaging in this kind of behavior, which is quite unfortunate.
No. It's happening from the side of Assam. Look, we have a very strong Assam police force. It doesn't mean that we could not attack Mizoram, but we don't want to fight among the brothers. And that day, while...
So why are you pursuing a case against a Rajya Sabha member of parliament from Mizoram, sir? Why is your government doing that? Isn't that exactly the same as the Mizoram government is doing?
What MP said? MP said that we'll kill more Assam police people. Already that incident has been happened. Okay, after that he should be quiet. He should not speak. He should not utter such a language. So definitely, there is a law in Indian Constitution.
So problems are there on both sides. Both sides need to calm down, and this is where the role. In fact, I want to bring in Suman Siraman on this. Suman Siraman, questions that will be asked. At the end of the day, you have this peculiar situation.
Boundary. It is very clear. Our Chief Minister very clearly said that.
But sir, cases are being filed from both sides. That's quite evident. Both sides are issuing statements which many say is playing to the gallery and is a very dangerous precedent. We certainly do not want incidents of the 26th to be repeated, and certainly not the aftermath of that ever to be repeated in any state boundary, any part of this country. And that's why it's very important for the centre also to come in. Suman Siraman, the major issue is this, that at the moment the centre has seized of the situation, but despite the appeals, despite the meetings, we are continuing to see such statements, such police actions and part of the administration in both states continuing, and that certainly is a cause of worry at the moment.
Madhav, I see this as requiring a two-stage process, but the most important first stage is to ease the tension. And as both the gentlemen said, the border dispute has been going on only for 150 years, so it's not like it's going to get solved tomorrow morning. So, but what needs to be done is that tensions must ease and violence at any rate must completely be stopped. The centre has a huge responsibility for obvious reasons. One is both governments. One is a BJP government, of course, in Assam, and Mizoram is an alliance government for all practical purposes. So I think that the responsibility of ensuring that peace and harmony return, and obviously the chief ministers, especially Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, it was disappointing to see him put out that video, the other day, where the Mizoram Police, when they came across, apparently were being cheered by public. I think that was most uncalled for. It was not necessary for a chief minister to put out that video. Certainly, he has got a right to be aggrieved because of what has happened.
Mizoram has planned it.
One second, sir. One second, sir.
He has to show.
Sir, 1 minute, sir. Sir, an opposition leader doing something like that, or an opposition party doing something like that, is understandable, because they would
it's not a matter of opposition or opposition.
But this is a matter of
the
chief minister. Sir, how do you justify?
Is not it a fact?
No, sir. Whether it is a fact or not, how does that help ease the tension? Please tell me, how does that help ease the tension?
You have not condemned the posters of the Mizoram where they say, "Bye bye India, welcome China."
No, sir. 1 minute. Again, you're dragging in something
everything
else.
needs to be
the
condemned.
point is
No,
not-
one second.
See,
Let me come in here. Mr. Goswami. Any provocation, anyone issuing a statement against the unity of India or the integrity or sovereignty of India, it is entirely condemnable. And that question definitely goes out to the Mizoram side as well. But I want to quickly bring in Rajat Sethi. Rajat Sethi, a very, very important point that was made over here is that while the two state governments may be doing, and catering to their own, population, vote bank, whatever you choose to call it, the fact is that the center has a very important role to play over here. Meetings have been held at the MHA. Unfortunately, the situation on ground continues to remain, tense, with brinkmanship, with all sorts of supply lines being cut off. There are different reports that are coming in on different days, and now, of course, cases being filed against each other. At the end of the day, you have a NDA government at the center, you have a BJP government in Assam, and the Mizoram government over there is also part of the larger NDA, is an ally of the BJP. How difficult is it to get everybody together, sit down and diffuse the situation? Somebody will have to take that initiative to end the brinkmanship, Rajat.
Well, thank you for having me. I have worked in the Northeast for the past 7.5 years or so. I can tell you one thing, when it comes to land, every single person, whichever state in the Northeast, they are deeply passionate about. This is one thing, they believe that this is their forefathers' land, and they are deeply, deeply committed to preserving every inch of that. So land carries an extraordinary amount of emotive element, and therefore we are seeing that this is not just a flare-up between two governments. It is a flare-up between two civilian bodies, organizations, civil societies, etc., which are on the ground. So please understand, land is such a sacrosanct issue here. But what MHA has been doing is, MHA realizes that this land boundary issue has been lingering between various states, between Assam and Nagaland, between Nagaland and Manipur also to a great extent, between Arunachal and Nagaland, and of course between Assam and Mizoram. And again, between Mizoram and Tripura, and there was a lot of violence associated with that as well because of coups and rians. So what MHA has been doing is that they have constituted a committee. It has been done recently to look at all the border issues from a historical standpoint. And also you would know that every single problem in the Northeast which led to violence, to separatism, to insurgency has roots in history. And this is the reason why even this issue has, really opened up or exposed the fault lines that exist in that region. Therefore, it is such a sensitive issue. No politics should be done. All parties should come along to try and address this issue before it becomes a major constitutional crisis. Another point that I wanted to point out here is that the Supreme Court should intervene. They should ensure that the matter is taken into cognizance and some kind of a legal remedy is also brought out. Because understand that MHA recently, after this initial deaths of 6 Assam police personnel, they constituted a 2+2 committee wherein the DG and the Chief Secretary of both the states, led by the Home Secretary of Government of India, sat together and they came out with the 3-point, interim kind of a status quo plan. And Assam stood by those 3 points, but unfortunately Mizoram did not stick by to those 3 points. Without these consensus bodies reaching to actual execution on the ground, it becomes deeply problematic to even reach to a status quo. And this is the reason why we are seeing that every single day it is escalating.
On the Mizoram government?
No, I'm just saying that
putting the onus
collectively.
On the Mizoram
No, I'm just
that?
saying collectively. No, I'm not putting onus on anybody. I'm just saying the emotions around and the rhetoric around land is so strong that ultimately it is the chief ministers who have to look up to and take care of their people at the end of the day. And that is why they have been elected to those chairs. And I understand where they are both coming in from. But if these consultative the consultative bodies like 2+2, which has been created by the MHA under its supervision, if they also cannot reach to a status quo, that's the bare minimum thing that they should do. Then it is a matter where Supreme Court perhaps needs to take the entire matter into cognizance.
My question still remains, Rajat. My question still remains, and the simple question that I'm asking is this, that when things have now gone so far, when you're seeing cases being filed for both the state governments, isn't it the onus on the center to either, call everybody to the national capital or send a team down to the ground to speak to both the sides to assuage the hurt?
So the Home Minister did that.
Get a
Home Minister did
sense
that.
from both sides to ensure that it's not going to go further.
Home Minister did that, and Himanta Biswa Sarma, Himanta was ready to go to Delhi. But Zoram Thangaji wasn't ready to go to Delhi. So I think there has to be some other channel of communication, perhaps, wherein at least both the parties should come to a discussion table, a talking table, and at least adhere to what is being discussed and agreed upon on these discussion tables. If both the parties discuss, finalize on certain things and they back off after they move out of the room, then there is no way out.
Before I go back to Mr. Lalrumata and Rupam Goswami, I want Suman Siraman to respond to that. Suman Siraman, efforts have been made by the centre. However, it's a difficult situation, appears to be the argument that Rajat is giving out to us. Do you agree with him?
Father, first of all, like I said, this is in two parts. The first effort should be to reduce the tensions, go back to the status quo as it existed on the border before the present incident started. And it is the duty of the center to ensure that that is done. It cannot be left to the two states to say, you sit down and talk now, not in an atmosphere of such tension. So definitely the center should intervene, should restore status quo as it was a couple of weeks ago at the border, and thereafter ensure that a blockade does not ensue off the national highway, because obviously that is going to stir passions up further in Mizoram. So obviously that these are the steps that need to be taken immediately.
There was no blockade, so blockade question doesn't arise. Please don't put this issue again.
I'm sorry, sir. Today MLA from BJP in Assam says that they will impose a blockade and they will force Mizoram into starvation.
What
and so
government
on.
is saying? You talk about the government, not a particular MLA. You talk
Sir,
about the
ruling
government.
party, sir.
You talk about
BJP
the government.
is not ruling party.
It's not about the MLA.
Sorry,
You talk about the government. What government is doing?
Let Mr. Lalran Ruata. Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Lalran Ruata on that. Mr. Lalran
There was
Ruata.
no practical
Mr.
blockade.
Lalran Ruata, once again, let's get in a word. We're talking about blockade in Mizoram. Let's speak to the person who's actually from there, Mr. Lalran Ruata. What is the ground situation as far as blockade is concerned? Is it only threats, or is there something actually happening on ground? Would you like to educate our viewers as well?
Chief Minister's said that there is no blockade, but the ground reality is that the blockade is still going on, and then you can see it from the journalist who is visiting on the ground, and then they don't seem to stop the blockade.
Sir, please don't tell lie. Sir, please don't tell lie.
I'm not telling the lie. I'm not telling the lie.
It will not exist, sir. It will not exist. Lie never exists.
Medical supplies and medical supplies, even oxygen supply has been stopped. This is the fact.
Nothing has been stopped.
Please stop playing.
Please
stop
don't
playing
tell lie.
That game.
It will be bad for the country.
You are lying. You are lying. Don't tell any lies. Don't tell lies.
Let me just please. This is a very important issue. This is a very important issue. Gentlemen, please calm down. This is a very important issue, and I want to bring in Rajat on this. Rajat, we have two different and diametrically opposite versions. It doesn't matter which side each of those spokespersons are there, but even if there is a threat of important medical supplies and oxygen being blocked in this day and age, when COVID-19 is something that we are battling against, this is a massive humanitarian crisis that we could potentially be staring at.
Well, geographically, if you look at states like Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, they're all connected with the mainland through one or two highways at best. That's the challenge. That's the bottleneck. So anybody can jump in today and say that, okay, I'm going to do a blockade. In fact, Nagaland and Manipur also is connected through one highway where Nagas sat through on an 100-day economic blockade. And the government of India had to move these globe masters, these giant aircrafts, to actually ferry essential goods. That's the unfortunate reality of Northeast. Look at Mizoram. Mizoram, I understand there is more of a sense of fear than actual, genuine case in point wherein Assam will actually go ahead and do a blockade. I don't think Assam is going to do that. But since Mizoram is connected through that one single highway, there is this perpetual fear that they are under threat and a blockade can come in. And this fear psychosis plays out. And I don't think, none of the MLAs within Assam, and especially within the BJP, will be so callous to go out and start threatening on economic blockade. That shouldn't happen. In fact, the party's discipline is strong enough to control such things. There are emotions, and these emotions are temporary. That's all I'm saying. And then the government of India also has to step in, so that such threats are not.
Mr. Lalran Ruata,
very serious threats.
Certainly nobody Nobody would, in fact, condone any kind of blockade. Certainly, it is absolutely reprehensible, if at all that has even been threatened. Certainly, and the government of Assam too, and the representative here is assuring us that that is only an empty threat. It's not happening on ground. But Mr. Ruata, I would like to ask you two simple questions that have come up during the course of this debate. One, those people who are coming out and putting out these provocative anti-India, whatever you want to choose to call it, slogans and statements and banners, isn't that something that is absolutely condemnable? And also the onus also on the state government to try and resolve this issue, either go to the national capital or engage with the center, engage with the Assam government and resolve the issues. Because if there is, some kind of a law and order problem or some kind of an issue as far as blockade or threats of blockade is concerned, it directly affects the citizens of Mizoram as well.
You see, the thing is, that kind of allegation against anti-national things, that I think that is uncalled for now, and then we have to discuss this boundary, some aggression to Mizoram border on every side. So, and the thing is, of course, this border has to be resolved. It needs to be resolved. And gentlemen earlier mentioned that Mizoram Chief Minister is not willing to go to Delhi. He is the first one who is speaking out that he wanted to have a discussion. And he is the one who is inviting Himanta Biswa Sarma to Aizawl. So I think we should stop playing this kind of flimsy kind of strategy to defame.
Sir,
Mizoram.
again you are lying. Again you are lying, sir.
Okay.
No, not at all.
I
This
was
is wrong information.
Okay.
You are
Information-wise,
a
it is
liar.
wrong.
Mizoram have got the arms.
Rajat wants to counter that. Rajat, we are almost
Public
out of
of
time. Quick
Mizoram
counter from
got the
Rajat.
arms.
Quick
How
counter from
come they got the
Rajat.
arms?
Yes.
You are a
See,
liar.
this was an offer which Himanta gave in that I'll come to Aizawl, but the Honorable Home Minister had called both the Chief Ministers to New Delhi to sort it out, and he refused to go. So this is a fact. Everybody in Delhi was awaiting that this meeting is going to happen in Delhi. Himanta was ready on a plane to get onto a plane and come to Delhi at the earliest. But see, Zoram Thangaji needs to understand that Delhi's role is crucial and there has to be a way out. At least a status quo has to be achieved. And thereafter, they can go to the Supreme Court and get a legal aid out of this issue.
Well, we'll have to leave it there for the moment. Unfortunately, things have in fact been escalating in the northeast. Clearly, it is time to douse the fires and end the brinkmanship, because this is something that could have very, very serious repercussions if it is allowed to fester. I'm just going to leave it there for the moment. I'd like to thank all our guests for joining us: Rupam Goswami, Rajat Sethi, Suman Siraman, and C. Lal Ruata. Thanks to all of you gentlemen for joining us this evening. Slipping into a quick break for now.